or 12-year-old white person. And these ideas promoted racism. In fact, when we want to look at the root causes of our racist ideas, look at our education system that's teaching people they're products of evolution. When it comes to even issues like communism, Nazism, go back and read about Hitler. He admits he believed in evolution, and what he believed about evolution determined what he did with the Jews. He was just applying survival of the fittest. Nature red in tooth and in claw. We're the superior race, and we're going to eliminate the others. And many commentators since, such as Sir Arthur Keith and others, have said what Hitler did was only consistent with what he believed about Darwin and evolution. You can go back and look at that fact. You know, it's interesting, I know a university lecturer in Australia, and he used to lecture at Sydney University, and he said, you know, with the Chinese students, they tell me that when somebody becomes a Christian, the first thing they say is, so you've given up Darwin. They equate becoming a Christian with giving up Darwinian evolution. Because the whole communist ideology is justified necessarily in a view of origins that says there is no God. How many people realise that really what you believe about where you came from affects your whole worldview? And you know, we need to grasp that. What you believe about where you came from affects your view of life, your view of your fellow man. And the more people are taught they're just a product of chance random processes, the more they're taught that they have animal in their ancestry, the more we'll expect them to see them acting like that. The more they're a product of chance, why not do our own thing? Why not write our own rules? We can do whatever we want to do. On the other hand, we understand when it comes to these issues of homosexuality, drugs, abortion, infanticide, pornography, violence, divorce, promiscuity and so on, they're not the results of animal in your ancestry, they're the results of sin. And as the results of sin, they should not be coddled and justified on the basis of evolution, but they should be condemned and judged, if not first repented, forgiven and forsaken. Let's sum all this up and see what we're saying. If you remove a basis in the absolute authority, if you remove the absolute authority from our culture, if we remove the creation basis, you'd expect to see all the absolutes collapsing. And we do. We see the Christian ethics falling around us. Christians are saying the world's getting worse and worse, but what's happening? Why is this so? Well, the more you remove the creation basis and the more you replace it with an evolutionary philosophy that says there is no God, the more you'll see the increase in all of these issues we've been talking about. And people say to me, but are you therefore blaming evolution? Are you blaming evolution for what's happening in society? Well, the ultimate cause is rejection of God as creator. But let's be honest and let's face reality. What has become the scientific justification for rejecting God as creator? Evolution. It's an anti-God religion that pervades our public schools. You know, when they tell us we can't teach creation in school because that's religion, but we can teach science, and they say we can't allow religion in schools, what they're really saying is we can't allow Christianity in schools, we've replaced it with another religion. And it's a religion that is destroying our society. Let's think of two castles. One castle's called humanism, its foundation is evolution. And all those issues, abortion, homosexuality and so on. Another castle beside it, called Christianity, and its foundation is creation. You know, there's a real battle in our society. There are people in each castle with guns that are aimed. And let me tell you where the battle is. The evolutionists know, aim your guns at the foundation, knock out creation, the structure collapses. What do the Christians do? Well, by and large, they shoot at each other. They have their cannons aimed at each other. You can go to churches and see that sometimes. Cannons aimed across the aisle, or 3 or 4 aimed at the pulpit, or whatever it happens to be. Or they aim their cannons into nowhere, or they aim them at the issues. You know what I mean by aiming them at the issues? We want to fight the abortion issue. Well, it's wrong. Why? Because a fetus is human. Why is that? Because it's obvious. Well, why is abortion wrong? Because it's not right. Why isn't it right? Because it's wrong. How many people fight it at the issue level instead of saying, hang on, God's the creator, he sets the rules, let's see what his word says. The reason I'm against abortion is because God is creator. His word tells me, Psalm 139, Psalm 51, many other places, at the point of conception you're human, therefore abortion is killing. We are not the product of chance random processes. We are not just animals. God created us. What I'm saying is if we don't fight the issues at a foundational level, even if we get the laws changed today in regard to abortion or pornography, what happens when the next generation come through who so believe evolution even more and reject creation and Christianity? Won't they just change the laws back again? We have to fight it at a foundational level. There's a war on. There's a war in society. It's Christianity versus humanism. But you know, at a foundational level, it really is creation versus evolution. You know, the whole creation-evolution issue is not just a side issue. It's one of the most fundamental, important issues of today. And if Christians don't grasp what the foundational issues are, we're not going to be successful in the long run in evangelising society. And you know, there's one other aspect to this. We want to be out there proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ because people say to us, well, that's the answer. We need to tell them about Jesus Christ. But you know what? 1 Corinthians 1 says the preaching of the cross is foolishness to the Gentiles but a stumbling block to the Jews. Foolishness to the Gentiles. What did Abraham say? If they don't hear what Moses and the prophets wrote, they're not going to be persuaded necessarily if one rose from the dead. You know, when you look in Acts, you find when Peter went to the Jews, his major message was, this Jesus Christ whom you crucified. You know, the Jews already believed in creation. They had a creation basis, didn't they? But when Paul went to the Greeks in Acts 17, when he mentioned the resurrection, they said, what strange doctrine is this? So what did he do? This altar you have to the unknown God, him whom you ignorantly worship. Let me tell you who he is. He's the creator. He's the sustainer. He made of one blood all nations that dwell on the earth. You know what Paul did? He started from a creation basis. You know why? Because the Greeks believed in evolution. They didn't believe in creation. They believed the gods evolved, you evolved. You know, New Tribes Mission and many other mission organisations know that when you go to a pagan tribe, you don't start with Matthew, Mark, Luke or John, you start with Genesis to tell them who God is, where they came from, where sin came from, where death came from and so on, so then they'll understand the message of the cross. I'd like to make a suggestion to you. Years ago, our society was like the Jews. It had a creation basis. It was taught through the universities and schools. Evangelists could come in and preach the message of the cross and get a tremendous response. But there's been a change, and the church has missed it. We no longer are like the Jews. We now have generations coming through who are like the Greeks. They don't have a creation foundation, and when you preach the message of the cross, that's foolishness unto them. And if we really want to be successful in reaching the pagans, we've got to start from the creation basis. Because evolution has become one of the biggest stumbling blocks to today's people being receptive to the gospel of Jesus Christ. You know, it's like the sower and the seed. The seed can only grow when it falls in prepared ground. I'd like to suggest to you there's very little prepared ground left. And we need to be out there knocking out the trees and the rocks and so on, pioneer evangelism to plough the ground so we can again plant the seed. If we're honest, most of our evangelistic thrust today really only reach those with some sort of church background or some understanding of Christianity or God. We are not reaching the pagans. And that's going to become increasingly so the more these generations come through our education system with no background knowledge of God or the Bible at all, and they're going to be harder and harder to reach. Creation evangelism is one of the most